first academic session, we have two speakers. Swami Paramatmananda Ji Maharaj, General Secretary Sri Ramakrishna Vedanta Math, Kolkata. Maharaj will speak on Swami Abhedananda's life and philosophy. He will be followed by Professor Prabal Kumar Sen, formerly Head Department of Philosophy, University of Calcutta. Thereafter, Dr. Yuva Nagaswamy, art historian and epigraphist, former Vice Chancellor, Kanchipuram University, former Director, Archaeology Department, Tamil Nadu. He will talk on basis of Indian culture. This session will be coordinated by Professor Ranjana Roy. It's over to Professor Ranjana Ray for conducting and coordinating the first academic session of this two-day national seminar. We have one humble request. May we please request you to kindly be seated and settle down because we can't start otherwise. And please switch off your mobile phones or put it on silent mode.
I begin by thanking the Ramakrishna Mission for giving me this opportunity to coordinate a very important session. Not only that it is the first session of this seminar, but at the same time we have very prominent speakers in this session. To say a few words about culture and philosophy, about the same theme of the seminar, we have listened a lot about culture and philosophy of India and Swami Abhedananda Ji's contribution to it. And now we are definitely going to listen from Swamiji about more about Swami Abhedananda Ji. And I think the theme is very important for not only for Ramakrishna Mission but also for all Indians over the land, because as explained, culture and philosophy, especially India, are closely linked to each other. As an anthropologist, we define culture as a behavioral aspect of man, which is biologically preconditioned. But at the same time, philosophy is a part of the culture, a very important part of the culture. It's more in an ideological field that we have philosophy, especially for Indian philosophy. This is very important part of the culture because it's again a way of life. It's not only the behavioral part, but the way of life. That's how the Indian philosophy, the Hindu religion, which was not named at a time period when it has emerged, maybe 10,000 years or before that. So these are closely linked with each other, and in this August seminar, I am very glad to coordinate this session, and I would invite, there will be a little change in the time scale as you are aware. We were supposed to begin at 5:30, but it will be now 6, so the time schedule will be, scales will be a little different. I would first be very glad to have Swami Paramatmananda Ji Maharaj, to the General Secretary of Sri Ramakrishna Vedanta Math, Kolkata, to deliver his speech on Swami Abhedananda's life and philosophy.
Om Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishnaya. As we know, we have gathered to observe the 150th birth anniversary celebrations of Swami Abhedananda. Along with that, we have many other subjects for discussion, which already had some deliberations here, and there will be more on the next day. Now in this session, it is mainly academic session, but based on Swami Abhedananda's life and philosophy, which is not known to everybody. No doubt that many of us may have known, because there are so many books and literature for knowing his life and philosophy. But still, many people are very backward in knowing this great soul, Swami Abhedananda, whom Sri Ramakrishna said, after Vivekananda, you are the most intelligent of his disciples. It was a life divinely ordained and divinely fulfilled. It was a multi-dimensional life as an individual, an illuminating preacher of spiritual ministration. It was a life of the patriot saint of modern India. It was the life of Swami Abhedananda, the intimate disciple of Sri Ramakrishna and an apostle of monism. Needless to remind that no other disciple of Sri Ramakrishna lived so fully his 70 years than did this seeker of the absolute truth and the explorer par excellence of the inner realm of human soul. The social milieu, as Bengal was the first place where British rule was established, a socio-economic change took place in the old Moribund Hindu society. A liberal class took its rise in Bengal. And this class, under the leadership of Ram Mohan Rai, started the ball of Renaissance rolling. Hence, aptly, Ram Mohan has been called by Swamiji as the first man of new generate India. The most significant work of Rai was his preaching of universal religion. Then came Devendranath Tagore as the leader of the religious reform movement. He followed the Vedantic trend in Ram Mohan's religious thought. The year 1817 witnessed establishment of the Hindu college nursery of the outstanding personalities of Bengal. Bands of young men who had lost their faith in the orthodox religion of the land met frequently in the debating clubs of Calcutta. They met to discuss religion, they assailed the superstitious notions and practices of their forefathers with extreme zeal. All faith on morality and religion became weaker every day and tended to decay. The country was in a ferment and the pulse of the nation began to beat quickly in union with new ideas, indicating the advent of a new era. Keshav Sen's influence was then in full vigor, and Ramakrishna's influence had then just begun to be felt. Ramakrishna Deva had by then become one of the most potent forces in the then spiritual and moral life of the country. Life of this silent man of God, a child of nature and a child of the Divine Mother, forms a real background socially, culturally and spiritually of the life of Abhedananda. This is a real historical statement, as Swami Abhedananda has repeatedly proclaimed himself as a humble spiritual son of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. The man who was destined to provide the Hindu society with the desired vitality appeared in the person of Sri Ramakrishna Deva. With him, faith was the profoundest wisdom and a certainty in everyday life. His very advent brought in his trail a God-conscious era. It was in this phenomenal era that Kali Prasad Chandra was born at 21 Nimu Goswami Lane, Calcutta, to fulfill the great task entrusted to him by his master. The family, Kali Prasad's father, Rasiklal Chandra, was a teacher of English in the Oriental Seminary in Calcutta from 1838 to 1863. His mother, Nayantara Devi, was a virtuous and intensely religious woman. Kali was educated first in a Sanskrit school, then in a vernacular school, and then he went to Oriental Seminary to have English education. He passed entrance examination when he was 18. Awakening of the soul. In the year 1883, Calcutta witnessed the arrival of Pandit Sasodhar, an erudite Sanskrit scholar. Pandit's unique forte in the sphere of learning was his lucid explanation of 6 systems of Hindu philosophy, as you have already heard from previous speakers. Kali Prasad was deeply interested in the Vaisheshika and the Sankhya systems on which rested the atomic theory of Conado and evolution theory of Kopilo. Kali Prasad's profound thirst for knowledge made him interested in studying Patanjali Darshana and Yoga Sutras. He did so, and this led the God-intoxicated youth in his search for Guru, the master for the remainder of his existence. The pilgrimage Sri Ramakrishna received the youth with a deeply affectionate heart and welcoming smile. Kali accepted him as his master for yoga practice at the very first sight and recognized him as an embodiment of truth and light. His soul began to cry like Gothe's first, "Where shall I grasp thee, where?" Sri Ramakrishna wrote Bija Mantra on Kali's tongue, as if stimulating power in him thereby. Thereafter, Sri Ramakrishna taught Kali how to meditate and enjoined him never to marry. Each day at the feet of his master brought him new and newer spiritual consciousness. Kali Prasad left his family to remain with his master from October 1885, when Sri Ramakrishna was removed to 55 Sampuku Street, Calcutta. His was a constant feature beside the bed of his master, afflicted with cancer, to serve him medicines and other related jobs. Study and meditation were the main features in Kali Prasad's life during Kashipur days. As the curtain fell on the life of the child of the Divine Mother on 16 August 1886, his young disciples, notably Kali and Naren, were determined to work out ideas of their master and propagate those across the globe. An ascetic, Swami Abhedananda shockingly writes, "I travelled throughout the length and breadth of India barefooted, without touching money, without thinking of the morrow, and with one blanket as my bed and garment." At Abhedananda Monastery, in the 3rd week of January 1887, the young boys, each of them Ramakrishna Santana, confirmed their apostolic life before the sacred fire of the Viraja home at the Abhedananda Monastery. As Swamiji used to recall, in his last later days, Abhedananda is synonymous with spiritual sadhana. Kali Prasad appeared to be reserved as he spent his days exclusively in study and meditation. As a preacher, in 1896, Swamiji was exhausted with strenuous exertion of his preaching work in the West and felt the need for an able assistant to help him in his London work. He sent a cable to Almazar Mott which read, quote, sent Kali immediately to London to assist me. He was nearing 30 when Abhedananda left India for England. On the memorable day of 27th October 1896, Swami Abhedananda gave an excellent address on philosophy and religion of Panchadoshi, and this was the inauguration of his entire preaching career, spanning over several decades across the West and to the East. When the work in America needed an able preacher, so went the directive from the leader in Calcutta to his brother monk in London. The new preacher, on Friday, August 6, 1897, he himself states, I landed at the port of New York, the commercial capital of the United States. Thus begins Abhedananda's American diary. Swamiji advised his brother monk, quote, I should stand on my own feet and struggle. The only thought that arose in Abhedananda's heart was to work with the resolute heart of a soldier. In September 1899, during Swamiji's second visit to America, he deeply appreciated the Herculean task Swami Abhedananda could accomplish and insisted, quote, I leave the work entirely to you. Swami Vivekananda suggested that Swami Abhedananda should stay in America at least for 10 years, which he did. On the march, by 1905, the Vedanta movement for New York Vedanta Society as the headquarters, under the leadership of Swami Abhedananda, gathered so much momentum that entire America, including elite professors and commoners, felt the impact and could satisfy their spiritual thirst. Many students of Vedanta, all Americans, have admitted that Swami Abhedananda was in possession of rare insight, subtle wisdom, and his remarks could come like flashes of divine illumination. The Brooklyn lectures in 1905, you have already heard from our previous speakers. In 1905, the Swami delivered a series of lectures at the Institute of Arts and Sciences, covering all aspects of the life and culture of Indian people. It was a panoramic venture and a challenging lecture of the highest excellence. No other Indian of his time had vindicated the country's cause on a sure footing of depth, knowledge, and statistics, as Swami Abhedananda had done. It was welcomed throughout the entire enlightened world and created a sensation there. His fairyland, the ashram of the Vedanta school in the Berkshire Hills, engaged most of Swami's attention since 1910. It was his ashram which assumed the focal ground of Swamiji's spiritual harvest. It was the historical fulfillment of the entire Vedanta movement. It was the dream of both Swamiji and the Swami to establish a slice of Tapovan, where a synthesis was reached between Vedanta doctrine and the doctrine of everyday life, and also between science and religion, the culmination of 20th century thought. The Swami comes back. The Swami reached Calcutta in November 1921. From now on, he becomes the prophet statesman whose voice echoed from one corner of India to the other extreme corner. At Jamshedpur on January 12, 1922, the Swami delivered an eloquent speech. He advocated formation of an ideal institute of national industry, which would impart technical education to the youth of the country and pave the way for India's industrialization. Based in Calcutta, the Swami established a permanent abode for his Vedanta society at North Calcutta, named Ramakrishna Vedanta Mutt. In March 1937, the Swami presided over the conclusion ceremony of the year-long Ramakrishna Birth Centenary under the aegis of the Belur Ramakrishna Mutt and Ramakrishna Mission. This was his last public engagement. The Swami declared himself as the humble spiritual son of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. The speech indicated the evening glow in the life of his apostle of monism. He did not utter a single word of philosophy, religion, and Vedanta, but declared in short terms the spiritual greatness of his master, Sri Ramakrishna Dev, by saying, quote, "The days of prophecy have passed before our eyes. The manifestations of the divine powers of one who is worshipped today by thousands as the latest incarnation of divinity we have witnessed with our eyes. Blessed are they who have seen him and touched his holy feet. May the glory of Sri Ramakrishna be felt by all nations of the earth. May his divine powers be manifested in the earnest and the sincere souls of his devotees, of humble servant of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna." In the early hours of dawn on September 8, 1939, Swami Abhedananda left his mortal frame. Now about his philosophy. Let us now delve deep into the philosophy of Swami Abhedananda, the message he left for entire humanity through all the ages to come. You have heard some short discussions on this from the previous speakers. In the treatise, Thoughts on Philosophy and Religion, there is an illuminating essay, Religion of Vedanta Philosophy. Religion of Vedanta Philosophy, wherein the Swami declares, quote, "Vedanta is a philosophy and a religion." He says that Vedanta does not deal with mere speculation, but it can be carried into practice in daily life and offers a perfect method to gain self-control, peace and happiness. The Swami says that as a religion, Vedanta is unique and universal because it supplies the spiritual needs of all classes of people in all ages and in all climes. The Swami declares that in the religion of Vedanta, meditation is the only way of divine communion. The Swami is a healer of soul and thus suggests that meditation should be practiced daily in a quiet place which is kept free from all mundane thoughts. We have from our Ramakrishna Vedanta Math printed this lecture of Swami Abhedananda, and some copies may be sent if you so want. In another essay, Religious of the Hindus, the Swami says that the proper name of our nation is Aryan, and their religion is Sanatana Dharma, and the ancient Vedic rishis, great intuitive philosophers, describe their knowledge in simple and potential language about their sublime conception of God and ideas of human immortality. In another essay, Cosmic Evolution and Its Purpose, the Swami finds in the Sankhya system the modern age scientific statement that, quote, "The laws of nature are uniform and regular, and that which is in the microcosm is also in the macrocosm." This is the highest truth of Vedanta. The Swami informed the world that through strict rules of logic and experiment, Kopilo concluded the building up of cosmos is a result of evolution of energy called Prakriti. In another celebrated treatise, Religion, Revelation and God, in the essay Divine Inspiration, there is a celebrated utterance of the Swami, quote, "God of Vedanta is like a circle whose circumference is nowhere, but whose center is everywhere." This is the ultimate truth. The Swami says that God inspires us when our minds are not disturbed by cares of the phenomenal world. We first try to know God by intellectual perception, but the great seers come in direct communion with the Supreme Being and receive infinite wisdom. The inspired prophet Sri Ramakrishna found human teachers imperfect. So, like a child, he prayed to his divine mother, "O mother, I am thy child. O mother, come into me and teach me." After receiving inspiration of the Divine Mother, when he came out before the public, the world recognized him as a divinely inspired teacher. The Swami advises us, go and sit in silence, meditate upon self, and you will receive absolute truth. In another celebrated work of the Swami, Life Beyond Death, the author asserts the relation between spiritualism and Vedanta in the essay of the same title. Thus, the Vedantic sages have discovered that the heaven of the fathers is not the highest abode of eternal truth, but it is phenomenal and bound by the law of karma. The author makes the reader spellbound by his lofty conclusion, stating, quote, "The path which leads the individual soul to the realization of the Absolute is not through belief in the departed spirits, but by the knowledge of the relation which the individual soul bears to the universal spirit." Vedanta calls the path Devajan, the path which leads to divinity. In another treatise, Science of Psychic Phenomena, the Swami projects the subconscious plane as endowed with unlimited powers and says that this plan is completely mastered by the yogis, who always strive for divine realization of the Absolute. The Swami warns us not to give any response to the alluring call of our selfish motives and to make us immortal by the radiance of eternity. In this treatise, the Swami says, in India, religion was brought into every phase of life. Constant thought of the material objects drags the soul down, and this is simply to mistake the body for the soul and matter for the spirit. The style of this book indicates firm imprint of scholarship, keen sense of judgment, and spiritual excellence of the author. The Mystery of Death. It was initially delivered as class lectures in America during 1906. Truly speaking, it is a book of philosophy and religion, centering on the sacred dialogue between Nuchiketa, the seer after divine truth, and Yomo, the ruler of death. The Swami says that the Kathopanishad has given an explanation of the realm of immortality, which transcends the limits of time, space, and causality. And that immortal realm is the Atman, where there remains no nescience or maya. In the celebrated essay, The Phenomenal Universe and the Brahman, the Swami analyzes the mind of the sadhaka and proclaims, quote, "The truths of Vedanta were not realized by reasoning, but they came intuitively like a flash. Process should properly be called superconscious realization, and when that occurs, everything that is known in this state is revelation and beyond the reach of intellectual reasoning." The great saviors of the world. The world-famous treatise consists of Brooklyn lectures of the Swami between 1907 and 1911 before American elite and erudite professors. While talking about evolution of religious ideas in India, the Swami analyzed that when the corrupted from Buddhism swept away higher ideals of ethics and religion, deep unrest was caused in society. Atheistic and agnostic views replaced the worship of one supreme deity. The Hindus needed a readjustment, and there arose Acharya Shankar, who re-established universal religion of Vedanta. About 600 years after him, Ramananda appeared in the south and Chaitanya in the north. Both of them are worshipped as saviors of mankind. Lastly, in the 19th century, there came Sri Ramakrishna with his message for the people of his age and for the future. His message was to establish universal religion and to destroy evils of bigotry. His message is most fitted for the present age of science and rational thoughts. Ramakrishna Deva wanted to emphasize the truth that all sects are like different paths leading to the same goal. The Swami adds with deep respect and fervent emotion, the latest manifestation of divinity was in the form of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. Him I have seen, therefore I have seen God. In America, the Swami called Jesus the incarnation of God and noted that spiritual and ethical laws, which are eternal, were learned by Jesus from the divinity within him. Swami Abhedananda, with his superb breadth of knowledge, related Vedanta with the teaching of Jesus and commented thus, quote, Ethically and spiritually, the teachings of Jesus are in complete harmony with those of Vedanta, and the steps towards the attainment of spirituality are identical. But Jesus spoke in parables, while Vedanta affords a rational foundation of ethics and religion. The Swami, a philosopher of the highest excellence, defines true philosophy thus, quote, "It must construct a theory which will be the simplest in its nature, but will explain the vital problems in harmony with the highest form of aspirations of human soul." The Swami repeatedly asserted that Vedanta is the only consolation of people of this age. According to him, the philosophy and religion of Vedanta embrace all the science, philosophy, and the religion of the world by accepting their ultimate conclusions. Consequently, the universality of Vedanta is unique and without any parallel. People of the West very well knows that the summum bonum of the Swamiji's message was unity in diversity, of which you have already heard from previous speakers. In this context, the words of the Swami are thus, quote, "The religion of Vedanta teaches that which exists is one. Men call it by various names. Thus, Vedanta establishes universal religion, which embraces all the religions of the world. No difference between the religions of the East or of the West. The monistic phase of Vedanta is the most sublime of all. Herein lies the solution of the deepest problems of science, metaphysics, and philosophy, and its final goal of all religions. The monistic phase of Vedanta alone can explain Abhedananda's mighty assertions, namely, I and my Father are one. The system of Vedanta harmonizes with the religious ideals of human mind and shows the various paths by which a man may attain to God consciousness. The most significant feature of this system is it classifies tendencies of different minds into 4 great divisions, and then it sets for the methods which may be required. Each method is called yoga in the Bhagavad Gita. Karma yoga, it is the path of selfless work meant for the active man who likes to work and always ready to do something to help others. Bhakti yoga, which is help ordinary emotions can bring forth spiritual unfoldment and realization of the ultimate ideal meant for men and devotional emotional nature. Raja yoga, path of concentration and meditation. By meditation, the individual soul communes with the universal spirit. Jnana yoga, the path of right knowledge and discrimination, meant for those people who are intellectual and possesses philosophical nature. The Swami was of the master's divine apostles who came with his master to help him. Apostles are the main of realization and are absolutely free from fetters of delusive world. In his class lectures held on 22nd February 1924, the Swami propounded the ideals of Raja Yoga. While talking about creation, the Swami said, God willed to create, and from this willing, the manifold universe was created. In fact, God's willing is the cause of creation. The cosmic mind was known as the Prakriti. According to Kopila, Prakriti is the material cause of the world appearance, and the Purusha is the efficient cause. God was known as an existent, coexisting with Prakriti. Attraction and repulsion of the atoms are fundamental features of Kopila's theory. Both Vedanta and science say that nothing of the universe is permanent. As everything is changing in every second, change means the universe. Again, but for the changing phase of the universe, it is impermanent and is known as Maya. But there is something unchangeable amidst the changes. That unchangeable something is the Atman. The Atman has a real existence in the phenomenal universe, and except the Atman, all things are under the sway of time, space, and causation. The immortal Atman transcends changes like birth, existence, growth, transformation, decline, and destruction. That means Sarabikar. The Swami comments thus, the Upanishad says that there remains no desire in the absolute being, whereas the determinate Brahma has will to create. the determinate Brahman transcends all adjuncts and categories. The Swami has repeatedly asserted that Vedanta is in perfect harmony with modern science. In many of his classes, he had elaborated his viewpoint. Thus, the whole universe is the manifestation of Shakti. This energy has been called as the primordial one or Abda Shakti. The manifested state of energy, Bhakta, is known as kinetic, and the unmanifested state of Bhakta called potential. The Swami goes on to elaborate again. We can also conserve vital energy within us, and this is called Prana Shakti. The logical conclusion of the above theory is lucidly summed up by Swami Abhedananda in the following words. Quote, the phenomenal universe came out of the vibrations of the vital energy. In fact, all the materials of the universe are in constant vibration. The vibration means change, and change connotes the idea of manifestation of world appearance. Again, in the language of the unique exponent of monism, he says, in the Upanishad, it has been described that the Creator imagined, I am one and unique. I shall be manifold, and therefore he became the manifold universe. True knowledge of the Vedanta, particularly the viewpoint of monism, gives us a perfect weapon to analyze the human mind. Why? The Swami's writing provides lucid and reasoned answer. The Swami says, quote, from the psychological viewpoint, the unmanifested energy is known subconscious mind, and mind which acts in the phenomenal or physical plane is the conscious mind. The supreme consciousness shines above these two levels, the subconscious and the conscious. Thousands of impressions of the past incarnations lie buried in the unfathomed bed of the subconscious mind. Some of these impressions, being intensified by the will of the living beings, rise above the level of conscious mind and begin to play, to act. This Swami, full of love for his fellow citizens of the world, offers way out of deep pangs and turmoil of the soul in the following words of solace and consolation. Quote, you should think all the time that I am not an ordinary man, but I am the prince. So I have a full right upon the paternal wealth, which is Atman. The knowledge of the Atman is our eternal inheritable wealth. We should rather think ourselves as the sons of immortality, Amrita Saputra. The Swami recalled his deep respect for his elder Guru Bhai Swami Vivekananda, and also recalled his superhuman exertions so that Mone Vedanta ke ghare ana. The Swami wrote thus, Swamiji said, that Vedanta is generally meant for the sannyasis of the forest, but it should be preached among all worldly men and women, not restricted only to sannyasis. We know that this Vedantic knowledge has been applied in the practical field of service to suffering humanity by the prominent monastic orders of the world. The Swami implores us in these words, quote, you will have to serve the others in the spirit of worship. It is the ideal message of this age. It will not be wise for you to make spiritual sadhana for emancipation of your own self, but you have to think about emancipation of all beings of the universe. In this context, the Swami recalled that Sri Ramakrishna's love and sympathy were not limited only to the human world, but it also convert the animal, vegetable, and other creatures. The conclusion, from the days of his childhood, Kali Prasad used to revel in the immortal classes of Sanskrit language, classics of the Sanskrit literature, while the period of his Paribraja was utilized in a notable measure for the cultivation of Sanskrit language and its literature. The master who equipped him with his higher training was loud in the praise of his Alaukiki Pragya, superhuman genius. The manifold activities of a crowded career spread over continents were never allowed to gag the genial current of his soul, his inherent love of Sanskrit. To all the above must be added the potent blessings of Sri Ma Sarada Devi, who, moved by the eloquence of a human to herself, declared, may the goddess Saraswati ever dwell on your tongue. The Swami's Ramakrishna Stotram is the expression of sincere and deep pity couched in a direct, lucid and universally appealing style. The verses present a notable synthesis of Upanishadic simplicity and loftiness with modern breadth of outlook. The love and devotion which have historically been evoked in the heart of the Hindus by the mother concept of God find their most melodious and moving expression in the hymn to Mother. Needless to say, the Swami Abhedananda is the poetic exponent of Thakur and Srima's divine lives. The author's tributes to his spiritual parents, like a man in form, down the earth comest thou, to speak the secret words to truth in religion, how? And pity, please, O merciful Mother, the sons bowing to thee anon, grant them refuge at thy feet, take their salutes ever anon. Om Purnamata Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramakrishnaya Arpanamastu. Thank you all.
Thank you, Swamiji, for giving us this understanding about Swami Abhedananda Ji Maharaj, for whom we are here now conducting this seminar on the 150th year. Thank you very much, Swamiji. I would now request Professor Probal Sen, who is a renowned philosopher and who was once the former head of the Department of Philosophy, Jadavpur University. Calcutta University. Sorry.
भक्तानां कामदो तुष्टः रुष्टो कामांग दहन्नपि अपि ज्ञानमयस्थाणुर्यस्तमीशं स्तुतिमहि नमामि यामिनीनाथ लेखालंकृतकुन्तलां भवानीं भवसन्तापनिर्वापन सुधानदीं सदाशिवसमारम्भां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Respected Swamijis on the dais and in the audience, and the respected audience, I would like to start my presentation by first of all thanking the authorities of this institute for inviting me to participate in this program, for paying homage to one of the great souls of India. I am a small fry, perhaps not quite fit for this occasion. And moreover, you see, God Almighty has not gifted me with one thing, it's oratory. I am not a very good speaker. It is one thing to teach things in a class. It's quite another thing to deliver lecture, especially a public lecture, where people of different types have assembled. For that you need a different sort of genius. And I frankly confess that I lack that. Anyway, with my limited resources, I shall try to do justice to the task that has been assigned to me. In a way, my task has been, you see, made easier because Swami Abhedananda Ji has already delivered a talk where he has discussed the salient features of Indian culture as well as of Indian philosophy. Anyway, but you see, people like him, they have adopted Vedanta as a way of their life. This has been their mission. Well, my temperament is a bit different. I am just a teacher of philosophy who looks at systems of philosophy more or less from a historical point of view, mainly with academic interest. So my treatment and maybe my attitude would be a bit different. Anyway, and a few days ago, I was requested to deliver another lecture in the Shivananda Hall, and there I said that I suffer from one more handicap. I cannot type or handle computers. And the person who usually types things for me, and for me one must be able to use diacritical marks, otherwise Sanskrit words cannot be transliterated. That person is not in Calcutta now. So I have to come here with a handwritten script, corrected here and there in a messy condition. So let me see what I can do. While I was studying philosophy at the undergraduate level, an excellent introductory book was recommended for study by my esteemed teachers. It was an anthology that contained very good articles that were comprehensive as well as authoritative on different systems of philosophy, Indian as well as Western. And this anthology was edited by two other renowned scholars, Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan and Dr. Humayun Kabir. The introduction to this remarkable anthology started by quoting a beautiful couplet in Persian, the meaning of which was something like this: "This world is like an old manuscript whose first and last pages are missing. Philosophy aims at reconstructing these two lost pages." In my humble opinion, this couplet states very well in a poetical manner at least one of the spirit of philosophical inquiry. One can attempt to reconstruct the first and last pages of a manuscript by studying thoroughly the rest of the manuscript and finding things in it that might provide some clues to the contents of the first and the last pages. Such a construction needs the help of scholarship, imagination, as well as reasoning. In like manner, philosophy also tries to understand the origin and the nature of this world by constructing explanatory models on the basis of our experiences, and also to determine the nature of us who inhabit this world. But in this endeavor, we cannot take each and every experience at its face value, because such experiences may sometimes be illusory in nature and thus mislead us, and thus vitiating our attempt at understanding the world. Hence, all such experiences must be critically examined in the light of reasoning, so that errors or mistakes can be eliminated at the very outset, or at least limited. Otherwise, we may arrive at conclusions that are not correct. This section called Vyagragomayu Sangvada in the Shanti Parvan of the Mahabharata contains two beautiful verses which warn us against such pitfalls. Talavad drishyate voma khadyoto habvavadiva nachaivasti talang domnah khadyoto na hutashana tasmat pratakshamapartham vidwan iksheta yuktitah na darshanasya pramanyat drishyamartham prakalpayet. In the first of these two verses, it has been said that the sky seems to have a blue surface and glowworms look like sparks of fire. But as a matter of fact, the sky has no such surface, and the glowworms are not also sparks of fire. The second verse states that in view of such facts, even what we perceive should not be automatically believed to be real or true simply on the ground that we are perceiving them. Serious thinkers who build up systems of philosophy are aware of such problems, and their system building starts either from our mundane experiences or from the findings of scientific investigations along with our mundane experiences, or from the intuitive experiences of some mystics as the basis of such an endeavor, and proceeds with the help of arguments that are supposed to withstand rational scrutiny. In course of their attempt at explaining this world, they sometimes develop theories about the creation of the world. Then they also propose a broad classification of entities that may be known by us. Then they may determine the proper definition of knowledge, as also of its various types, as well as the means or coronas of achieving them, with the help of which some general principles that embody the main tenets or siddhantas of the respective systems are sought to be formulated. In addition to this, while explaining the nature of us, that is the self-conscious inhabitants of this world, some of these systems also try to determine whether a human being is simply a specific type of body that is at times characterized by awareness and is subject to birth and death, or is there some principle apart from this body, mind, sense organs, etc., which inhabits this body and accounts for consciousness, but is not destroyed with the destruction of this body? If the answer is in the positive, then the further question arises, can such a principle enter into relation with a new body after some time? If the answer is negative, then one may ask, what happens to this principle after the death of the body inhabited by it? If the answer is in the positive, then there is a further question, does this process of being associated with a new body go on endlessly, or can this series of reincarnations come to an end at some stage? In case there is such a stage, the question is, can there be experience of suffering or dukkha at this stage? If the answer is again in the positive, one may ask, is there any feeling of bliss at this stage? In case the answer is a positive one, one may again ask, what is the means of achieving such a stage? How does one account for the internal states like memory, imagination, doubt, illusion, happiness, suffering, desire, carnal urges, anger, greed, hankering, avarice, confusion, undue attachment, pride, and so on? And what are their interrelations, if any? But anyway, so far, what has been stated above to be the task of philosophy seems, in many cases, to be the same as the task of scientific inquiry, because different sciences also aim at providing reliable account of the world along with all its inmates, and also a coherent and trustworthy explanation of the events that takes place in this world. চোখটা আটকে যাচ্ছে, এরকম করে দিলে পড়তে পারছি না, চোখটা আটকে যাচ্ছে, এই দুটো মাইক এরকম করে থাকলে চোখটা আটকে যাচ্ছে। আমি কি মুখটা তুলে বলবো? কারণ মাঝখানে দুটো আমি দেখতে পাচ্ছি না তো। আচ্ছা, সরি। In that case, why should anyone be interested in philosophical theories, since science has made such spectacular progress in understanding the process underlying the natural phenomena, and has also helped us in solving so many of our mundane problems, and thereby has made life far more comfortable for many of us? In answer, it can be said that while no one can afford to ignore the truths that have been established by the immense labor of so many scientists, one should not also forget that sciences deal with facts, but we often face problems that cannot be solved by merely appealing to such facts. As we have already said, philosophy also deals with human nature in all its aspects, factual as well as normative. And in the second type of endeavor, we may have to deal with questions like the following. How to decide what is morally right and morally wrong in a given situation? Are moral standards that are enforced during normal conditions also valid when the conditions are not normal? What are our rights and duties as responsible citizens of our country? How should we behave as members of the society so that social injustices are removed as far as possible without unduly upsetting social harmony? Can violence in any form be adopted for removing social injustices or for suppressing disruptive tendencies that involve, for example, sedition and terrorism? What should be the criteria for treating something as beautiful or sublime? Can such criteria be objective, or are they necessarily subjective? Can artistic activities be pursued for their own sake, or should one also take into consideration whether it is affecting the morals of the people in an adverse manner? These are not issues that can be settled solely on the basis of scientific findings that have been reached through the collection and analysis of empirical data obtained through observations and/or experiments with the help of time-tested methods. Because, as I have said, the issues that have been raised here are not factual but normative in nature and cannot therefore be settled simply on the basis of facts. After all, what is and what ought to be do not always coincide. And when they do not coincide, then in order to decide what ought to be the case, arguments and considerations of a different kind are required. And it is here, I think, that philosophy has scope to make some contribution. I'm skipping one or two pages because, you see, even in science, we use so many concepts like, say, evidence, knowledge, proof, argument. But what is the nature? How to decide whether an argument is correct or incorrect? How to decide whether a piece of cognition is genuine knowledge or not? Now, here also we have seen that many philosophers, both in our country as well as elsewhere, have devoted their attention on such questions that also concern science. So in a way, we could say that such meta-scientific inquiry is also form of philosophical endeavor. Another area of much acrimonious disagreement is the interpretation of religious texts, especially those that have some bearing on social or legal matters. In all major religions, one comes across a number of sects that disagree on a number of issues. Such disagreements, which may be due to different interpretation of some passage in the relevant scripture of that religion, sometimes lead to disastrous consequences. In many cases, such rival sects express their sectarian views through different interpretations of the same passages found in the scriptures of the religion to which such sects belong. Such disputes may be sought to be resolved amicably with the principles or techniques of interpretation that have been formulated in a general, impartial, and unbiased manner, which can be applied for reaching some non-controversial interpretation of such disputed passages. One branch of philosophy that is nowadays called hermeneutics may be of immense help in solving such problems. One well-known example of such a philosophical endeavor may be found in the system of Indian philosophy known as Purva Mimamsa that was formulated by Jaimini, where a large number of rules have been formulated for interpreting those sentences in the Vedas and the allied literature that are mainly concerned with the performance of rituals and the meanings of which are not very specific, or when two or more such sentences seem to be mutually inconsistent. It may be noted that such rules were also applied subsequently for interpreting problematic passages of the Upanishads and Dharma Shastras as well. Now, so much for the task of philosophy in general. I would now like to add a few more comments to what Swami Abhedananda ji has said here. And before I say what I have got to say, I would draw your attention to two or three small things, which I think will not be irrelevant here. One is a story about Jivaka, the physician who attended on Buddha. It is said that Jivaka went to Takshashila for his training. He was a very poor boy and could not pay the fees for his teacher. So his teacher said that, well, okay, you paid your dakshina when my instruction is over. Well, after a long course of training, the guru told Jivaka and all his classmates that now is the time for dakshina. Go out and bring to me some plant which does not have any use in medicine. Most of the students came back with some plant or other. Jivaka did not come come back within 3 or 4 days. People were anxious that what has happened to him. On the 5th or 6th day, he came back dead tired and fell at the feet of his guru, weeping that, pardon me, I could not find even a single plant which cannot be used for medicine. And he told that your education is complete. There is nothing on this earth which is of no value. Every plant serves some purpose. For me, as an academic person who studies philosophy just for academic purposes, no system is worthless. Every system contributes in its own way to the development of other systems. And there's just one more thing. I heard this verse, I don't know its source. I heard it in a lecture by one of the Jaina Acharyas in Rajasthan. And it was amantram aksharam nasti. There is no letter which cannot be used in a mantra. Nasti nalam anushadham. There is no plant which cannot be used as medicine. Ayuggaha purusho nasti. There is no person who is totally incapable. Yojakas tatra durlava. But what is rare is to find the man who can utilize them in a proper manner. And so, I would say the same thing about philosophical systems also. I really do not put them on a scale of this is higher, this is lower, this is better, this is worse. Every system has its own point of view. And this has been emphasized in a number of verses by one of the greatest thinkers, who I'm sorry to say is not remembered these days so much. It is Bhartrihari, who formulated the theory of Shabda Brahmavada. And he emphasized this thing, this Vinnam Darshanam Ashritya Vyavaharonugamyate, that people theorize about this world or about our experiences from different points of view. Tatrajan Mukham Ekeshang Tatra Neshang Viparjaya. And it is bound to happen that what is primary for one is secondary for the other. In this situation, what one can do is to look at them impartially and then take what is to be taken from each system. And at the end of his book, after rejecting many theories, he raises the question that, well, in case these theories are not acceptable to you, why unnecessarily discuss them and increase the volume of the book? And Bhartrihari comes up with a beautiful verse. Prajka vivekam labhate bhindai ragama darshanai. The more you study different systems of thought, the clearer your intellect becomes. Kiyadva shakkam unnetum swatarkam anudhavata. How much can one person, know by applying only his own thoughts? Tattad utprekshamananang puranai ragamair vina anupasita vriddhanang vidya naiva prasidati. So if a person sticks to only one system and does not study the other systems that have been established by the ancient sages, his learning will never attain clarity. Anyway, finally, I will just, how much time is there? About 10 minutes?
More than that.
More than that? Okay. I am always afraid of exceeding time limit. Less than 10 minutes, okay. Now, one major feature that I find here is that in Europe, the philosophical systems mainly developed around individuals. Individual philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, Kant, Descartes, Thomas Aquinas, Berkeley, Hume, Hegel, Kant, they developed their entire system. But here we have sampradayas, where the initial work has been done by some people like, who are usually called the Munis or Rishis, who compose the sutras, and then various commentaries, some commentaries were written, where these sutras were explained sometimes augmented, sometimes modified, and all the time defended against rival opinions. The second thing is that with the sole exception of the Charvaka school, almost all the other schools were affiliated to some religious sect or other, though their affiliation was a bit different in ways. For example, you say all the 6 systems accept the Vedas as authoritative. But while some schools say that it is Apaurushaya, some say it is Paurushaya. It is the creation of God. For the Purva Mimamsakas, it is Apaurushaya. It is eternal, not created by anyone. Then this Astika-Nastika distinction is also there. And normally people think that only those who believe in God are Astikas and those who don't believe are Nastikas. Perhaps this is not the case, because even in the 6 Astika schools, the Sankhya school does not mention Ishvara anywhere. The Yoga system does. The Purva Mimamsakas do not bring in God anywhere. And moreover, Kumarila Bhatta tries to show that the arguments for establishing an omniscient, omnipotent God, the arguments are not logically correct. If you have to admit God, you admit it on the basis of scriptures. But logical arguments won't do. Finally, one more thing. There are also some skeptics in India who challenge the very notion of truth, the very notion of knowledge. Because they said that, well, after all, we are fallible creatures. We often commit mistakes. What is the guarantee that what I know now is not going to be proved wrong next moment? It's very difficult because you see, the more you bring in evidence, you'll say, well, this is also another cognition. This can also be wrong. So how to deal with such people? It was really a very tough job. And especially I'll name 3 works. One by Nagarjuna, it is his Vigraha Vyavartani, where he tries to show that the concept of pramana cannot be established. And if you do not have pramana, how would you prove things without pramanas? Another text was this Tattvapaplava Singha by Jayarashi Bhatta, where he tried to show that all the definitions of different entities that was provided before him were incorrect. Now, in Indian philosophy, the system is that you establish something with the help of 2 things, definition and evidence. Lakshana pramanabhyam vastu siddhi. Now, if it can be shown that definitions are not working and there is no evidence worthwhile, nothing can be established. We end up with Shunyavada. And so all these systems tried the level best to counter such skeptics. One more thing. Moreover, one more thing here, and I think I'll stop with that. Time is running out. Just 2 points. That on the basis of emphasis, some schools can be said to be agama mulaka. They take their primary stand on scriptures. The Vedanta schools, for example, their primary starting point is the Upanishads. For the Purva Mimamsa, it is the Brahmana text of the Vedas. For the Buddhas, it is Buddha Vachana. For the Jainas, it is the words of Mahavira. By contrast, the other schools like Sankhya Yoga, they admit Shabda Pramana, no doubt. But they do not start immediately from scriptural statements. They bring in scriptural statements now and then for support. But their approach is primarily on the basis of reasoning. So this, one can draw this distinction between Agama Mulaka and Tarka Mulaka. And finally, as everyone knows, this great debate between monism, dualism, and pluralism that has evolved here. There are so many monastic systems. The principal dual systems are one of the Sankhya Yoga school, they are dualists. Also the Madhya Vedantins, they are dualists. Advaita Vedantins are, of course, the king among the monists. But there are also other monastic schools, like the Kashmir Shaivism, or the other Shaiva schools that developed on the basis of Brahma Sutras. And finally, one more thing, one more important school was the Yogacara system, built by Asanga Vasubandhu, who had admitted pure consciousness or Bijgapti Matrata as the sole reality. But they differed from Advaita Vedanta on one point. For Advaita Vedanta, this pure consciousness was Kutastha Nitya. It was eternal as well as changeless. But for the Mahayana Buddhists, like Asanga Vasubandhu, pure consciousness could undergo changes, so long as there was avidya. But once avidya ceases, the transformation also ceases. Well, I have tried to put in my own incompetent way whatever I could present. If there are mistakes here and there, I beg to be excused. I will just end with one word of apology. That Yadatra Sausthavam Kinchit Tad Guroreva Me Nahi Yadatra Sausthavam Kinchit Tat Mamaiva Guror Nahi. If you find anything good in what I have said, it is due to my teachers. And if there are faults and mistakes, they are due to me. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Prabal Sen. Now I would request Professor Dr. U.R. Nagaswamy, who is an famous art historian and epigraphist. He was a former Vice Chancellor of Kanchipuram University. He is a former Director, Archaeological Department of Tamil Nadu. Please.
And I'll say next, you go on to the next, because there's no time, I'll be fine. Huh? Okay. I'll be speaking here. You be here? Okay, I'll say next. I'll stand here and I have to read. Okay. Respected Swamiji, revered Swamijis, friends, and my colleagues. I wanted to show you something, what is culture, what is Indian culture. But for want of time, I will be cutting down many of these slides and try to finish it up by the time you want me to close it. I want to only say I am a Sanskrit student. I got admission in the Vivekananda College for the first time in 1955 to 58. I studied Sanskrit by the grace of Swami Kailasanandaji Maharaj, who was the chairman of Madras, then Madras Ramakrishna Mission. The second, 3 years back, Ramakrishna Mission Coimbatore branch gave me Vivekananda Award, National Award, and honored me. I am so thrilled. I remember that. And lastly, I would like to say that when I had been to Chicago for a talk, I went to the place in search of where Swami Vivekananda stood and gave a talk. And they said that place is there, but new buildings have come. But still I went there and stood there for a few minutes. I was thrilled to stand the place where Swami Vivekananda stood and proclaimed the greatness of Vedanta to the world. The same thrill I feel now standing in the Vivekananda Hall of Sri Ramakrishna Mission. Thank you, Swamiji, for giving me this great opportunity. I will not be going in Vilambita Kala, not even Madhyama Kala. I will be running in Durita Kala and try to finish it up. Please bear with me. Next one, please. Look at this great monument built 1,000 years ago in Tamil Nadu by one greatest emperor, Rajaraja. And this is a relic. This is the culture that we have imbibed, both in northern part of India, middle part of India, and southern part of India. I would love to talk about it. I have a great book, but some other time, maybe I'll get one more opportunity. Next one, please. Look at this beautiful, beautiful Nataraj face of, when it's just the face of Nataraj in the temple. And we have thousands of such images in different temples, big temples, small temples, etc. in Tamil Nadu. But this is another cultural trait we have imbibed. And what a beautiful one. This is inspired marvelous poetry that has survived for the past 1,600 years here in Tamil Nadu. This is our culture. Next one, please. This is Dakshinamurti. Swamiji was talking about always Dakshinamurti, the giver of knowledge, the embodiment of philosophy. I would love to speak why he is in the southern part with his Chin Mudra. What is the philosophy behind of this culture in the temple, and what is the temple philosophy? Next, please. Here is a young boy being initiated with Upavita, Yajñopavita, which we, after this we have this Akshara Abhyasa, you know, initial training to study Akshara, sound. Akshara means not only the script, but it is the sound. And we have this tradition from Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, Shikshavalli, Varna Swaraha. It begins the teaching to the student, Varna, Akshara. And that is the beginning. I would allow to speak about it sometime later. Next. Now, we have Brahmacharya, Grahastha Dharma, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. This is a base of our society in ancient times. And we have the initiation of the studentship in that young boy, and we have the sannyasa at the very end, and that was one plank on which the entire Indian society flourished. This is on some other occasion we'll have it. Now, then everything begins for us from Vedic initiation. And after some time, after some time, this whole thing is changed into temple culture. And in temple, we have daily pujas, you have festivals. All these are based on certain texts called agamas. I will just touch about that subject. Now, look at this. Now, along with all these structures, temple structures, we have beautifully planned villages, beautifully planned house sites, and where people should stand, where people should live, etc., all beautifully distributed in our cultural trait. These are the streets, about 400-year-old streets, which are still alive. Well, that itself will take us to a greater area of our Indian culture. Next. Now, I will restrict myself to a few points alone. Next one, please. Look at that. First of all, what is culture? Culture, we have a very vague idea of culture. What is culture? Now, culture, in a very general way, is recognizable traits of human traits and its products through the centuries. So that we call culture. Next. Indian boundaries, we are talking about Indian culture. Indian boundaries have even changed over a period of times. But in a general way, we may say that the space between the Himalayas in the north, to Kanyakumari in the south, and Afghanistan, Balochistan in the west, to Vietnam in the south. All over we have Indian culture. Next, please. Its culture extends from the Vedic period to modern times. So in space and in time. With it, the predominant lifestyle of the people of this region and the material they left behind until the colonial rule. Next one, please. In fact, the Indian culture continues to live among the people to this day. Next, please. We have one culture, Harappan culture. But the Harappan culture, we have some artifacts. But we are yet to get a clear picture as the written expressions are yet to be deciphered completely. Next one, please. Now, the earliest recognizable forms are known from their immortal poems and precepts, Vedas and Vedantic Upanishads, and several branches that have sprouted, and also several streams that have flowed into it. Next. It is clear that the study of these poetic creations, that their life is found in an integrated manner in the religious faith in other worlds, which was called Samaya, and the worldly life, they are called Laukika. One is called Samaya and the other is called Laukika. Next. Since both these are inherent in their life, it is difficult to separate them absolutely. The failure to grasp in modern times leads to many confused social problems, but there are evidences to show that the ancient Indians were aware of this division, Alaukika and Laukika. Next one, please. In rudimentary state of life, Indians were admirers of nature's power, like blowing wind, blazing fire, the flowing river, and the unshakable but at times trembling earth, the growing trees, creepers, flowers, fruits, their smell, taste, etc., were looked at with wonder and amazement. We call them the Vedic mantras. They are the immortal poetries. A system of sequence of propitiation we call tantras. Next one. Soon this led to a spirit of inquiry into the outer form and the inner spirit of man that brought the essence of Veda, Kriya, and the philosophy we call Vedanta, Jnana. Kriya and Jnana, other important part in our cultural life. Soon, the Jnana overwhelmed the rituals. Since then, all that grew up in times and space fell back on the philosophy which laid the foundation of sectarian divide, different mode of rituals, or forms of altars or structures. They were all based on some basic philosophy. The altars, Yajnakundas, Yagakundas. Next one. Vedic rituals and philosophy were always associated with cosmic movement, like the sun, moon, stars, planets, and man's situation and cycles of seasons and the like saw the signs of Jyotisha. Next one, please. Shadangas. Shadangas played a very important part. They are the Vyakarana, Nirukta, Ganita, Jyotisha, Chandas and Kalpa. There are some different variations in the list, but they are there. Next one, please. Chitis are the Vedic altars which are used for Kamya Karmas. Annakama, Gramakama, Swargakama, etc. They used Chakrachiti, Pravugachiti, Senachiti, and so on. This gave rise to temple architecture in square form, rectangular form, circular form, semicircular form, etc. Next one, please. The second major requirement for obtaining the fruits of this Vedic ritual, a prescribed code of conduct for the individuals, and this life in society was evolved, which we may call Laukika. Next one. Such prescriptions are codified in Dharma Shastras by Manu, who was later than the Vedas, but was not only a comprehensive knower of the Vedic and their auxiliaries, but also was a practitioner of this path, and so we call him Vedagnya, Dharmagnya. Next. What is Dharma? Dharma is that which sustains the civilized society. Dharanat dharma mityuktam. Next. Other Dharma Shastras like Manu. Then Manu Dharma Shastra. This is the earliest. Then we have Yajnavalkya, Gautama, Apatthamba, Bodhayana, Parasara. These Dharma Shastras have been the core of our cultural life. Next. The Indian thinkers emphasize that man must not waste his life haphazardly, but must lead a well-aimed, structured life. The life was thus divided into 4 basic parts, into brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa, which we call ashrama. This was another basic important cultural trait. Next one. Then we have purusharthas. Man must have an idea of what he is going to do in his life. Dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. These are the basic cultural traits of our human life. Next one, please. We have, next, you go on to this. I want to show it is not confined to only northern part of India. The whole of South India, including Tamil Nadu, from very early period, they only followed the Dharma Shastra, and they follow even to this day Dharma Shastra. Next one. Dharma is a code of conduct in personal life and communal life. The 4 ashramas, 4 purushas, and 4 varnas also were important contribution of Hindu cultural trait. Next one, please. The varna system was not the creation of the Brahmanas, but Brahmanas themselves were created. When it started, we don't know. Next. Next. Now, next. Next. I am giving details about the life as prescribed in Dharma Shastra for brahmachari, grahastha, and vanaprastha, and sannyasa. This is not needed, but these are the essential things that has carried us to this day. Next one, please. Then we have the second, artha. Artha stands for acquisition of wealth. This relates not only to individual, but also the state must have a rule, conduct. That is Rajanidhi, king's conduct. These are all prescribed in our Dharma Shastras. Next one, please. Now, his ministry, his administrative setup, his judiciary, all these are all integrated in the Dharma Shastra, Rajanidhi, and other auxiliaries, armies, cultivation, commercial setup, everything. These form the basis. Next one, please. All these aspects were well structured in the early Shastra of Kautilya, Artha Shastra. Next one, please. Then I come to the last part, Agamas. Whatever we did in the Vedic altars, whatever we invoke, however we invoked the Vedic fire, all gods in the Vedic fire, these were transferred to the structured imagery, architecture, sculpture, and the distribution. Originally, same mantras were used in the temples. Later on, Vedas went behind and stotras came in, and each of these images were given in stotra form, so that we have both Vedic and also the stotra agamic text used in the temple architecture, temple worship. Next one. There are several texts in each sect. Some of them, like Marichi Samhita, are considered very great antiquity. Similarly, there are many Sakta Agamas, Saiva Agamas, and so on. Next one. In all these texts, there are many commonalities. Tantra, Tanoti Vipulanarthan. You see, Tantra means Trayate Mahato Bhayat. Tena Tantram Ityuktam. There is a definition in one of the Agamas. What do you mean by Tantra? Tantra and Agama are synonyms, same meaning. Next. Agamas are generally divided into 4 parts. This is again very important. Charya, Kriya, Yoga, and Jnana. Next, Charya is personal conduct. Kriya is temple worship, Murti worship. Yoga is each Agama, each sect had their own yoga. And Jnana, each sect had their own philosophy. So, these are other important divisions, Charya, Kriya, Yoga, and Jnana. Next one, please. Now, Stotra, Sangeeta, and Natya became part and parcel of the temple culture. In the temple, during the worship, Shodasa worship or other extended worship, Nritta, Gita, Vadya was offered as offering to the temple. And these are all prescribed in the Agama. What raga should be played, what tala should be played, all these are all prescribed in the Agamic text. What are the dhyana slokas or the murtis? So many murtis are distributed in the temple. And we don't know what they are, but you have the dhyana slokas in the Agama, which the temple priest, they use it for their temple worship. Next one, please. So, the whole structure, the tall, lofty temple I showed you, the low, tall structure is set to stand on 4 principles, which are called Dharma, Aishwarya, Jnana, and Vairagya. Next. Now, the Agamas give selection of building material, selection of ground, measurements and forms of the temple, the images, the distribution of images in the structure, the daily periodical rituals and festivals, the imitation of the priests, initiation of the priests, musicians and dancers, etc. And finally, next, look at this. This image comes into existence, bringing the whole cosmic process into our visual representation, and we imagine that we are living in the vast expansive sky, and above this Adholoka, and in the earth, we look at everything as God. Every movement is God. The rising sun movement, Akshara, Nakshatras, Grahas, Nakshatra, Graha, Tara, Mandalas. In between, we look at the divine sporting, and that is a philosophy. Next one. Look at it. It has created such beautiful life for the common man, not the philosopher, but the rural man. Here is the festivals give what all the essence of this worship in very simple way, but in a beautiful way to the common man, women, children, all. These are the type of festivals that take place. These are the cultural traits. Next one, please. Then we have the Charitas, Ramayana and Mahabharata, the role of Veda, Agama, and then we come on to epics. Epics are history, but there are some legendary mythical association with that. Next one. While all these are in scriptures, the sagacious presence of great men, Shankaracharya, Krishna Chaitanya, Swami Vivekananda, and others formed the basis for the continuing and evolving culture of India. Thank you very much for your very kind speaking.
I would like to thank all the speakers. in this academic session. Swami Paramatmanandaji had given us insight not only in the life of Swami Abhedananda Maharaj, but at the same time, he has given us idea about Hindu philosophy through Vedanta. And Professor Probal Sen has given us talk about Hindu philosophy, the system of philosophy, and how mind, body, and codes of behavior reflect the system, which are interlinked with each other. And finally, Professor has given us, Swami has given us an idea where when we talk about culture, we always think about tangible and intangible elements. And he had started with the intangible element from Vedas and saying different sectors that come into the Indian culture. And then he has come into the tangible sector where the temple, the deity, and the types of worship together, not only with the people who are devoted completely to the temple, but at the same time how it plays a role in the life of the common people, and how we, the common people, perceive at the religion, spirituality, philosophy from our own viewpoint of Indian culture. I would like to thank Ramakrishna Mission for giving me this opportunity to coordinate this session, which has really enriched me. Thank you very much. Thank you to the audience and the delegates who have come over. Thank you very much.